it's it's funny because it's necessary that for some of the people in my church, I call and schedule a time to visit with them or have them over or those kinds of things. And for other people in my church, it's like not expected. And I could just stop by for a little bit, you know?
And that's just one example. But I think for me, one of the things that was really nerve-wracking but growth producing was when somebody, her name's Sandy, she came up to me one Sunday and goes, "Hey, do you want to come and do some prison ministry with me? I need somebody there." She wasn't feeling super confident that she was communicating the scripture well enough, and she wanted somebody to come with her. And she's like, "Hey, if you could, come with me every Tuesday, da 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 da." And that was, again, you guys only watch videos, so you only know so much about me. That's nerve-wracking to me for a couple different reasons. One, I don't like the idea of being locked in a room for a very long time with people I don't know. Like, it's just not super comforting to me. Like, not like just sort of in a room, but literally locked in. Like, you're not getting out. It's a prison.
Yeah.
It's intentionally not easy to get out. And so that was like super nerve-wracking, but it was one of those situations where it was like, if I don't make myself do this, one, I probably don't know what I'm missing out on. And two, like, maybe this could be used for growth. And I mean, that has been such a transformational thing in my life of forcing yourself to do something you don't like, knowing that you can literally fall flat on your face, but saying, okay, well, where can I grow? Where can I adapt? What benefit can I get out of this? And I think that's super helpful. The same thing with the visiting people. This is going to sound bad, and maybe it is bad. I don't know. I hate visiting people in hospitals. It's that, I don't know what it is. It's just that feel of like, one, most of the time, I don't know you when I'm coming there. It's probably like, I have this feeling that this is just as strange for you as it is for me, because you can't get away. You're trapped in that bed, and me, some stranger that somebody has me coming to talk to you, is a little awkward for both of us. And so, again, forcing myself into situations like that, because again, it's like you said, part of the job, I don't think is maybe the right way to word it, but that is ministry. And even if you're not good at it, it's that part that you kind of have to force yourself to do, for the sake of the people that you're over.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think some of that is in our head even, right? I'm similar. And I think that I've grown in this area, but especially at first, man, when I would go and visit someone who's in the hospital, it's like, I think because I was new at it, I assumed that it was absolutely as awkward for them as it was for me. Like, listen, there's a part of me and there's a part of you in the back of your head that's like, listen, I understand you don't want me here. I don't want to be here. Let's just do this because this is the way it's supposed to be. But like, in fact, though, that's not true, and I think I had to, I had to get past that in my head, because there's a reason that the scriptures talk about visiting the sick, and how important that is. And it's because, I mean, they're in a position in which they need encouragement. They need the scriptures. They need to be prayed over. And it truly is a service of ministry to love them in that way and in that time and place. And I think that I've never been more convinced of that than when my mother-in-law was passing away, and there was a lot of ministry that needed to happen among the family, which frankly could be even more awkward depending on the family, right?
Yeah.
But there was a lot of ministry that needed to take place. They were actually looking for solace and comfort, and they knew that they weren't going to find it by watching TV or something. Like at the end of the day, they needed to have the scriptures read. They needed to hear what is heaven gonna be like? How do you know if you or she or they are Christian? How, like, they need that reassurance and comfort. And so, as awkward as that might be at first, I think that we have to get past that. And perhaps if you're an older guy with more life experience, when you become a pastor, you've been through maybe both your parents have passed away and you've been through some things like that. Maybe you go into that already knowing, right? And so maybe that becomes not a thing in your ministry that's as difficult, right? But for me, there are, it's not even just visiting the hospital that's difficult for me. It would be visiting in general. Because you and I have grown up in an era in which you don't visit people.
Oh no, yeah.
Right? Like
just text me.
You call and plan, or text, frankly, you're right. Text and hook up. In fact, when people are like, hey, we should get together sometime, I'm like, cool, have your wife call my wife, because I don't know. And that's how it happens. And then magically my wife says, hey, so-and-so's coming over on this day or whatever, right? And it just magically appears and happens. But like, that's the era that we live in and that we've grown up in. But specifically for the elderly, they grew up with like pop-ins. You know what I mean? And like, but you need to give me like a few hours to put together the fake house at least. Don't just show up at my door, right? Come on.
Like, there's laundry right there. The dogs are here. And they smell the high heaven. You can't come into this house, bro.
Yeah. Let's just visit on the porch. But that's a cultural thing, right? That is just different between eras and generations. And so it's actually, it's funny because it's necessary that for some of the people in my church, I call and schedule a time to visit with them or have them over or those kinds of things. And for other people in my church, it's like not expected. And I could just stop by for a little bit, you know?
Let's talk about that real quick. So I think that's really, that's a whole nother aspect to this. So when you're talking about as a pastor, for example, you have a multi-generational congregation. Most churches are going to be that way. And so not only are you having to sort of weigh, hey, what are the things that I'm good at? What are the gifts that I have? What are the things I need to sort of lean into intentionally to grow on? While at the same, like, that's hard enough. While at the same time saying, okay, well, how I approach those things vary with all of these different people. So with my older congregants, they just expect me to pop in. For sort of my, my middle-aged congregants, they kind of want to plan it a little bit. If I'm trying to, talk to maybe a teenager or like a young adult, like there's a whole nother aspect there where they don't even want to, like, they get anxiety even making eye contact. So now I have to like text them. Like, so there's this whole, the
background panic attack.
Yeah, they look calm, but in their head, everything's exploding. So it's one of those things where, like, for all of these different people, not only are you trying to lean in and say, okay, I need to do these things, but I think as a pastor or somebody that interacts with a lot of different kinds of people, really knowing, hopefully this comes natural to some people, where you can sort of read people really well and kind of get okay, and sort of roll with those punches individually, so you kind of know. But if you don't do that, and this is something, again, I think this is where it applies sort of like outside of the pastorate, just to certain jobs. I'm a salesman for my job, so there's lots of different people I interact with on a very daily basis. So I've had to learn and adapt, which is honestly sort of been a transferable thing into pastoring. But I've had to learn to adapt really quick on how somebody's feeling, sort of their personality, how to intro a conversation. And I think that's what you just mentioned. There's a whole different dynamic underneath this other thing, to where now maybe you're not real good at hospitality and you're trying to lean into that a little bit, but now you have to figure out how to lean into that and learn that well with all of these different generational cultural things all involved. And so really, as a pastor, what you're trying to do, if you're trying to do it well, is like, at the end of the day, I think it can be really easy to get home and be like, I just don't know. Like, I give up. I don't know how to do this well, because what works for, Ethel over here doesn't work for, Jim. And you're just trying to figure out all it. So like, maybe, I don't know, I know I'm putting you on the spot here. Maybe speak to that a little bit. Like, how have you navigated that well, where you're like, man, like what works for them does not work over here. And now I'm having to kind of, I had to, in my head, make mental folders of how to do this in different situations with different people and love them all well.
Yeah. So a couple of things. First of all, that has to do, that dynamic is in everything that you do as a pastor, including preaching.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
But because I have to recognize who is in the who's in the room, who it is I'm speaking to. I mean, there are certainly scenarios in which you don't, if you're guest preaching or doing some sort of evangelism or conference or those kinds of things, of course you're not going to know everyone that's there, but and so it's going to be more generalized, but I have the privilege of knowing these people, and so I'm going to be able to, or let me rephrase that, based on our conversation, right? I should and must, even in preaching, address that multi-generational, multicultural kind of. And I mean, we're in Dickinson, North Dakota, right? So this is oil field country. There are people from everywhere here, and people of many ethnicities, from many cultures, from a bunch of different states, from a whole lot of different denominational backgrounds, some not from any church background. And so I have to, that's all stuff that you have to think about and navigate the whole time. And the answer to the how is actually simple enough that it's probably going to be a letdown to everyone. And it really is just, you need to get to know them.
Yeah.
You need to know these people. I've said from the pulpit a time or two, when I'm making application and maybe giving comfort or those kinds of things, like, I know you. And I know that some of you are struggling with these things or those things and this stuff. And I know that there are marriages in the room that are difficult. I know that there are moms in the room who feel like they're single moms because husband never shows up or comes or cares or whatever. Like, I'm able to say those things and interact with a lot of different people in the room, but you got to know them.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't want to stop you mid-sentence, but
yeah, go ahead.
That is so important. I think that part right there, there are, especially, I think, one of the focuses, and this may have changed since I've been in college, but one of the focuses I know when I was in college coming out, and just so everybody is aware, this has been nearly 20 years ago that I was in college, just short of that, probably 18, 19 years. And so there wasn't a lot, or at least a lot that I remember, of classes on like, hey, being a pastor is far more than knowing the right theology, being able to preach well, being able to organize a business, an organization, right? Like, those are the things I remember them teaching a lot. Like, homiletics is important, knowing the right theology is important, being able to communicate, that's important. But one of the things that really isn't focused on a lot, and what they tried, at least at the time that I remember, they tried to sort of do that, was like, hey, go be an intern somewhere. That's not really super. I mean, that's I guess at least a start. But the idea is what you're talking about here. This relational aspect of it is so important. I mean, like I said, so I go around a lot of different places, talk to a lot of different people. There are people in each stop that I have, because they know I'm a believer, and we've talked about that all before, that like, one, I have to be ready on my toes at any time because I don't know when they're going to want to talk about certain things or what they're going to want to talk about. But secondly, I've got to know them well enough to know how to sort of enter that conversation. Like, what do you know about Christianity? What don't you know about Christianity? Like, where do you stand on certain things? And I think as a pastor, obviously that goes a whole nother layer deeper, where knowing what they're going through, and you're not just preaching to them, you're preaching into their situations. You're not just giving general ideas, hey, this will probably work for you. But again, knowing how their marriages are going, know how their relationship with their kids are, knowing if someone's dealt with this depression or a situation, that knowing them helps you not only take advantages of your strengths as an individual, but know where maybe you do need